Flowers are only flowers because they fall. Like any good story, FX's Shogun holds true to this beautiful phrase. Shogun did not need to end in a big battle. It did not need a shouting match, a kiss, a promise. What we got was perfect. Because only in the serenity of this ending do we realize the game that Shogun played with its viewers, as well as the characters. There is a concept in Shogun, told to Blackthorn by Rodriguez early in the story, that in Japanese culture, a man has 3 hearts. One for the whole world to see, one only shared with loved ones, and one final heart hidden in a place that only the bearer can find. Shogun is told on these 3 levels. The 3 main perspectives in this series weave together to bring Toranaga to victory, while also distracting the viewer throughout the show's run, just as Toranaga would have intended had he been a writer. As he tells the heir in the first episode, the most important battles are won with wit and word, rather than with a sword. Only in Shogun's final episode does the truth of this structure hit home, far harder than any battle could have. Blackthorn is on display for the whole world around him. He is the heart that rests in the mouth, on full blast for everybody to hear. Blackthorn arrives in Japan in a fog of death. His washing upon the shores of Japan is almost like an arrival to the afterlife. And Blackthorn is dead in a way. His old way of life is gone. He will never see his family again, and he will never embrace the sea as he so wishes. He is now just a lost soul in the limbo that is Japan, and we only really fully realize this at the end of the story. But Blackthorn refuses to accept it throughout the story, despite all the things pointing towards the fact that he is stuck here. His strong will might seem admirable, but it's all actually a mark of just how weak Blackthorn is. He's ruled by impulse and imperiousness. In the final episode, this comes to a peak when he screams at Toranaga that he used him when really it is the other way around. Throughout Shogun, Blackthorn views the Japanese people around him as lesser, almost savage. The only people that he held in his mind as his equal was his old crew, fellow Protestant seafarers. But even after being changed by Japanese culture, Blackthorn is still Blackthorn. To him, everybody else is weird, even though he is the minority in this place. Even his old crewmates are weird to him now because they don't view him as this expert navigator anymore. They call him out for being a supposed glory hound. His only real claim to any importance is smashed, along with the remains of his ship. Mariko is the only other person who even comes close to being an equal in Blackthorn's eyes, and I think that is because of their shared sense of loss. They both have lost their families. Their links to the past are tainted and fraying. They both seek escape from fate in a way. Mariko, a fate of shame and continued suffering, and for Blackthorn, a fate of dying in a faraway land, far away from the promise of love and recognition. But the defining line that separates these two characters is their sense of duty. Blackthorn's only duty is to his selfish desires. He thinks Toranaga genuinely thinks he's important, when he really isn't at all. Blackthorn thinks he must have something to bargain with for the return of his ship, but in the end, he only has ashes to return to the sea. This is all in contrast to the duty that drives Mariko forward, and she does in the end get what she wants because of this. Mariko was working towards something beyond herself in using her desire to die to help her lord. The difference between Mariko and Blackthorn is demonstrated best when Blackthorn asks Mariko to live for him before she is set to commit seppuku. The only passionate thing she pursues is her own death, this thing she has wanted for far longer than she has known Blackthorn. And Blackthorn, regardless of the growing understanding between the two, cannot sway her. Blackthorn wanted Mariko to live for him because he would otherwise be forced to live alone, and ultimately that is his fate. Mariko could see this, and she would have rather died for herself, and for her liege, and for her duty. One of the only ways to redeem herself in the eyes of her culture, her faith, and even herself. Blackthorn was the loudest heart on screen, and the shield for the others that hid behind it. Mariko bears herself like a leafless branch, stiff, barren, yet stubborn. It will stand until it can bear no more. She carries herself with cold propriety, except around those who can relate to her. As Fuji is resisting the ordered death of her son, Mariko says, "Let her be the last to hold him," and that she knows Fuji feels the pull of death. Mariko understands the burden of losing loved ones, of losing family, of losing one's honor and the purpose that she had thought that she would have had. We see Mariko try to reconcile the things she does in solitude and prayer, never around other people. We see her praying for forgiveness to her god, after doing her duty as a samurai. Mariko feels alone in her struggles because she uniquely is. Blackthorn and Fuji are the only two people who come close to understanding her pain. One as an outsider, and the other as a woman who has lost her family and initially seeks death. But neither of these people can truly, intimately understand the full concoction of emotions that Mariko has swirling around inside of her. Her faith goes against what her desires are. Her desires go against her duty, and her duty goes against her faith. Mariko never felt true love or care until she met Blackthorn. Her feelings for him gave her a taste of what the young, more innocent Mariko craved in a husband, and she showed the tenderest spots of her heart to Blackthorn. But in the end, this was not enough for Mariko. Nobody could quite understand her conundrum, except Toranaga. Toranaga understands the complexities of loneliness. The most powerful man walks alone, and this is something Mariko can relate to, even if she might not realize it. Mariko is a powerful figure and tool for her lord, both due to her infamous family as well as her intelligence and loyalty. These emotions and values we see her fully reveal to the people closest to her are what lead her to literally run to her death. Her deep respect for duty, as she shows to Toranaga. The loyalty she holds towards her family, as she shows to Fuji. She shows her soft spot for Ochiba through poetry, the only method of expression that she can freely use in front of all these people. In herself being the leafless branch that once held the fallen leaves that Ochiba references in her own poem to Toranaga, the leaves that start a fire. This is what leads to Ochiba deciding to pull her own forces away from Ishido after Mariko exposes his inability to protect her son. Ochiba's poem is her own way of telling Toranaga that she will not directly support him, as she is the fallen leaves, a quote-unquote neutral thing. Though, she will still help to start the fire that will skyrocket Toranaga to power. But also, as we see in the final episode, Mariko had a special place in her heart for her faith, shown only to Father Alvito and her god. And this is what forces her hand in marooning Blackthorn in Japan forever. With this final act of her life in ensuring Blackthorn's survival and the destruction of his ship, she helps her liege, she helps the church and her faith, and she saves the man who showed her love and kindness in her final days. Few knew Mariko, but of those who did know her heart, they were certainly deeply changed by it. Toranaga is the hidden heart of this series. The whole story plays out according to his whims, and it's only at the end of the story that we are finally given a glimpse into the grand game he'd played upon the world around him. In the final episode, as they sit on the cliffs, Toranaga tells Yabu the truth of his plans. Toranaga also tells Yabu that he does not try to control the wind, he simply steadies where it's blowing. The future Shogun admits that the only reason Blackthorn ever seemed important at all is because the people around Toranaga thought he was important. That, and he also makes Toranaga laugh. Everybody around Toranaga, enemy or vassal alike, assumed that he only called Blackthorn to him in the first place because this outsider was important somehow, that there was a secret massive purpose for him. Even Blackthorn kind of assumed this, which further inflated his own sense of importance in this foreign land, where he just assumed that he was surrounded by barbarians he could easily manipulate. Blackthorn was no different from the Catholics in this regard, but the whole time Toranaga just used those perceptions as a distraction from his actual plans. Toranaga always meant for Blackthorn to remain in Japan, and that is why he had his ship destroyed and will continue to destroy his ship. Toranaga only exposes this to Yabu as he is about to die. If Blackthorn should leave Japan, who knows what other foreign armies could be brought into his empire. If Blackthorn leaves, Toranaga also loses the very valuable distraction that Blackthorn has proven to be for his enemies. Blackthorn never fully realizes this, and continues assuming his own importance, just like his crew called him out on in that dark alleyway. As Toranaga says, Blackthorn is just like another one of his hawks, blind until he lets them see. Toranaga hid in his heart his ultimate goal, to become Shogun of a unified Japan. For the entire run of the show, we see him through a new light with his revelation that everything, Mariko's death, the manipulation of Yabu and Blackthorn, and the political use of his family, was all planned. We kind of go from rooting for the underdog to stopping and questioning our own view on Toranaga, the man who tricked us, the audience, as well as those around him. We ask ourselves in those final quiet shots of the show, where we can hear the waves and see the hills, who this man is. This guy we thought we knew. This guy we used to want to win. Was he doing this for the greater good of Japan? Or was he doing this to satiate his lust for power? This story is called Shogun for a reason. We knew right from the beginning what Toranaga wanted in his hidden heart. It was on the title page. He just fooled us and everyone else in the journey there. In the end, Toranaga did not need an army to strike the killing blow to his enemies. Instead, he sent one woman who spoke the lethal words that sent Ishido's empire crashing down around him. We only realize the beauty of the story in its quiet end. As the flower of the climax falls, we're forced to see the black thorns that once held it towards the sun, as well as the chance for something new to blossom. Thank you for watching, guys! I really appreciate it. Shogun was great. I read the book years ago. Read the book. If you enjoyed the show, read the book. There's differences, but I would still say, even with the differences, both are excellent versions of this story. 10 out of 10. Very much enjoyed it. If you have seen Shogun, let me know what you think. If you've read it, let me know what you think. What didn't you like about this series? What did you like? I want to know. Let me know what you think of Shogun's ending in the comments, and I will see you next week, guys. Goodbye!